Hey there, y'all. So we're just gonna get started here. No one's in here with me. I need to get more organized about giving you all a heads up of when I'm coming on. So today we're gonna do Ike and Tina Turner. It's very interesting. I was just studying them about a month ago, and then Tina just passed away a little less than a week ago. Or about a week ago now, I think. So with that being said, I had been watching a just I research when I look up an aspect or a sign placement. I look up tons of definitions, and then I use my own discretion and my own observations to come to a conclusion. So with that being said, I was studying Sun conjunct Mars because I have someone that I may be working with, a collaborator who I have this aspect with. And as I was reading the comments in the YouTube video of someone explaining, their take on Sun conjunct Mars, I can't even remember which astrologist it was. Somebody wrote, Ike and Tina Turner had this. So I was like, oh no, could it cause violence? Mars is the warrior on the sun. So I was like, their relationship was pretty brutal. Let me go see what the violence was there. I was thinking it had to do something with a malefic. It must be, Mars square Pluto or Saturn or something like that. And I was not surprised to find out that they have Mars square Mars. Now, Mars square Mars does not necessarily always indicate physical violence, but it is a very challenging aspect when it comes to romance compatibility. It's very hard to get on the same page with one another. So basically, that's what I wanted to go over today in regards to Ike and Tina Turner. I've entered them in divinetimingdatabase.com. This is a great resource if you want to store all of your friends and family's birth dates. You can join divinetimingdatabase.com. It's a free tool for you to use. And if you want to look up the celebrities, or to add some more in here, I'm just doing it as I go. The username is celebs, CELEBS, like celebrity, celebs. And then if you want the password, hang out until the end and I will give you the password. You can come add more celebrities into the database. With that being said, I did show you guys, I'll tag it up at the top when I get a chance in the, rerun of this. There is a way in the database to look up moon compatibility, but I actually was at the psychic fair in LA a couple weeks ago and I found a quicker way to do it. And although I don't like to divert you guys to other sites, I will show you, tools that can be beneficial for you. So with that being said, we do have, if you go to astro/seek.com, you can see it up at the top in the scroll there, and you go to birth charts. You can click unknown, and this is the cool thing, is it shows you for that day and place the whole range of where the moon could have been. So I went ahead and did that for Ike really quick because we don't have a birth time for Ike, and it's 100% that his moon is in the sign of Virgo. And Tina's moon, we do have a birth time for, and so her moon is 100% in the sign of Gemini at 6 degrees. So basically, when you're looking in the database, when I added Ike, I put 12 in unknown, and I'm not going to go through that all with you guys today. If you want, I think I did it in the last Celebrity Synastry video, which for some reason it's been eluding me all day, even who I did last, which was, I think, in the last week. You guys, what couple did I just do? I did Prince Harry and Meghan. So I'll tag that up above when I get a chance. Also, if you want to watch it. So I went over the breakdown of how to add people in that one. And there's also another little video I did to show you. But basically, Ike's moon sign in the database is based on him being born at noon. So at noon, he would have his moon at 14 degrees Virgo. But when you click unknown and hit 12 in the database, it doesn't give you it won't give you the moon. Well, I guess it does. It gives you the moon compatibility, but not to the same extent as if you have the birth time, I guess. And I did put the sun and moon orbs wider, so the moiety of the moon is a 10-degree orb. so the moon is very magnetic, right? So anything that's contacting the moon within 10 degrees, I need to do a video on this, but I'm just killing some time to let you guys get in here possibly with me. And I did put a poll in the chat, so check that out and go ahead and answer that. But so it'll be within any aspect within 10 degrees of the moons will show up in the database, and any aspect within 20 degrees of the sun is the moiety of the sun. Now do be careful, because sometimes it will tell you something is squaring when it's actually in like trining signs, just because of the orb. So when that's the case, like let's say you have a sun in Leo trying a sun in Aries, but it's at a wide orb, so for some reason it's reading as a square. You want to divert to Leo and Aries would be trine, even if the angle is a square. That's how I read it anyway. Some of you that might be kind of advanced, so you can just skip over that. That being said, you know, Ike and Tina did have some nice synastry. I think the reason, now most people don't realize this, and I just discovered this, and I actually want to look at this in her birth chart, so we'll pull that up really quick while I'm waiting as well. Tina Turner is ID number 98. Let's pull up her natal chart. I want to see, I think she must have Saturn, or some if not all of her generational planets are probably retrograde. Let's see. Yep, Pluto's retrograde. That's a generational planet. Uranus is retrograde. Saturn, retrograde. Just called that. And the nodes are always retrograde, in case you guys didn't know. Oh, her Mercury is also retrograde. So it's almost like she didn't find her own true voice independently. So the thing I'm trying to say about the generational planets being retrograde is that she had her success, her individual success, in her 40s. And I called that. I said her Saturn's probably retrograde. Yes, it is. She blew up in her 40s. But before that, she had mega fame with Ike. I don't think us younger generations realize quite how famous they were. Together as a couple, they toured the whole world. They were on every late night talk show. They were mega famous as a couple. And this is because they have, I believe it's because of Sun conjunct Mars, and that's like in an exact orb under 1 degree, 0.52. If you look at planet 1, planet 2 here, I'll kind of put it up to the top. And then look, Sun conjunct Venus. That's a wider orb, 6 degrees. It's showing here because I have it. Now let's see. This is Ike's Mars. So where is his Venus? Did he have Venus conjunct Mars? Oh, his Venus is in Scorpio with his Sun. He has a stellium in Scorpio. And we can't pay attention to his houses because we don't have his birth time, but his Mars is in Sagittarius, so it would be an out of sign conjunction, so I wouldn't count that. Because see, when somebody has Venus conjunct Mars in their birth chart, it's considered a love marriage. I don't know how much love was actually between the two of them. There were some loving aspects here, but a lot of physical compatibility, in the sense that they could get a lot done. Now you see here, Tina's Mars is opposite Ike's Neptune, so he confused her a lot. Probably a lot of cognitive dissonance there. Let's see. But the Mars square Mars, I think that's where the violence and the battles came into play. And this is at a 0.29 degree orb. So, like in Mars square Mars, I just saw this with a client, so I thought I had already told you guys. But it doesn't always indicate physical violence. It can just be that the way you two go about doing things is very different. So it's hard to get on the same page. I did a whole video on Mars square Mars in conjunct, I think. So I'll link that above also. But when you meet and you have Mars square Mars, you're going to have a very strong physical attraction in the beginning. Surprisingly, even though usually Mars squares to most planets will create a breakup around 5 or 6 years or less, Mars square Mars, I am starting to see more and more in couples that are married around 15 to 20 years. So that's very interesting. Usually, though, they're coming to me when they're having problems. it's a very challenging relationship. It's very hard not to trigger each other. It's very hard. The way you go about doing things is very different, so there's going to be a lot of frustration. So his Mars is in Sagittarius and hers is in Pisces. Yeah. Now, the thing about that is that Sagittarius and Pisces are traditionally ruled by Jupiter. So sometimes you'll see those work a little longer. So I want to get into the timeline of their relationship, and then we'll get into the moons. I'm doing this very quickly because I just basically wanted to show you guys that the Sun conjunct Mars is why they had mega success, were able to travel the world. Performing on stage night after night is very physically, tenuous, strenuous, and they, had the endurance because of Sun conjunct Mars. They really shined. They were able to, pull off that great feat, even with all of the conflict in the relationship. So it's very benefic, the Sun with Mars. So they met in 1957, and they were married in 1962, about 5 years later. Now, if you've been following me long enough, you know that I tend to count, and even if you watched, I think, the last Synastry video with Meghan and Harry, I tend to notice that these deal breakers, these malefics like Saturn square Pluto, etc., will break the couple up 5 to 6 years from the origin date, not from the marital date. But here, they were together for 5 years, and then they were married for about 14 years. But they also had 4 children involved in a career. Now, see, this is the interesting thing when we're looking at celebrities, is a lot of people say, oh, these relationships are for PR, yada, yada. Well, even in like wealthier marriages, at a certain point, you intertwine so many resources and things together that it's very hard to unwind that. So a lot of times, yes, it becomes sort of a business arrangement. Now, Tina left Ike with 32 cents in her pocket. And I was watching a video, and because I started studying them a little, and I usually don't go too much into their biography, but I will a little more here. She actually had all 4 kids when she left, and she had to live in like a ghetto area, and she was world famous. Like, she'd traveled the world with Ike in the Ikettes. So she got some harassment. People were shooting at her windows of her car and her house. This is what a lot of women that are escaping domestic violence go through. They have to give it all up just to spare their lives. I mean, it's amazing to me that in this day and age that society still doesn't want to acknowledge or talk about these issues, but that's what I'm here for. And hopefully, as people understand their astrological synastry a little more and come to see that these patterns are pretty much undeniable, there'll be less situations like this. That's, I think, what my purpose here on this earth is. But anyways, so with that being said, they were married from 1962 to 1967. So this kind of made me realize that I guess the one exception of the origin date would be moons. If you're able to get together when your moons are not compatible and get married, then perhaps the 10 to 12 year mark of would start from the marriage date rather than the origin date. Okay, so but I honestly think, just hearing some of their stories, it sounds like she was over him at a certain point between 5 to 10 years. He was sleeping with other women, and she was just going, let the show must go on, basically, was where she stood, is the way I would sum it up from what I was researching. So this is the last thing I want to get into, since this is where I'm leading with this, is their moon compatibility. So I always tell you guys, if the moons aren't compatible, you're not going to be married happily 30, 40, 50 years. With the start that they had, with the career and just the beautiful music that they made, they could have potentially been lifelong mates. If you just look at them, they had a real chemistry. And I think it goes back to sort of Sun conjunct Mars and Venus, but they lit up the world. So if that love had been deeper, and there wasn't the tumultuous aspects underneath, I think that they if you were just looking at them on the outside before we started to learn what was going on behind closed doors, you might have thought they were a match made in heaven. If you really kind of look at their pictures, they're super cute together when they were performing. With that being said, her moon is in Gemini at 6 degrees. We know that for sure, as I mentioned earlier on. And his moon is 100% in the sign of Virgo. You can see here whether he was born at, over here to the right of the wheel. My mouse doesn't work on here. Just look for the moon in this little blue patch here. 14 degrees at noon. So if he was born at midnight, 12:01 a.m. or 11:59 p.m., he has his moon in Virgo. So Virgo and Gemini are ruled by Mercury. So I do find that co-ruling moons, we talked about this with Harry and Meghan, do tend to gravitate to each other, as do moon squares. Normally, if it's just a square without a co-ruler, it's going to break up around 5 or 6 years. Normally, Gemini Virgo moons break up around 4 or 5 years, but they do connect. They do make a contact. And depending on the orb here, like if Ike was born earlier in the day, his moon is going to be in a tighter square to Tina's. So that could have even been an even stronger emotional pull. If he was born, closer to midnight, he would be even further from her. That actually could have softened some of the tension, and the co-rulership Mercury could have helped them to communicate and just, keep talking and doing what they needed to get done, help them to be able to organize their thoughts, etc. Kind of do brainstorming and creative thinking and organize the projects. But with that being said, their moons were square. Again, we talked about with Libra and Taurus, their moons are co-rulers, but they're not square. They're co-ruled by Venus, but they're not square, so they can last about 10 years. But when you've got Gemini, Virgo, co-ruler Mercury, yeah, they're going to love to chat and have so much to talk about in the beginning. But Virgo is introverted and Gemini is extroverted. So after a while, Virgo's going to get annoyed with Gemini always needing to have all their friends around, and Virgo just wants to kind of settle in and nest, and Gemini wants to have everyone over. So it's just little things like that are going to, Virgo might want to stay home for a month and write a book, and Geminis can't sit still long enough. They can for a little while, but, they can read a book, but they can't. Writing a book would be a little bit more challenging. They can. Gemini can, but, it's going to be maybe Gemini wants to write a book when Virgo wants, to be alone. That can kind of work, right? But Gemini might want to chat on the phone while Virgo's trying to concentrate and write a book. And so Virgo moon might say, hey, can you go in the other room and chat on the phone? Because I'm concentrating on something right now. And the Gemini moon person might not. They might just be like, gosh, you're always, so antisocial or something, But anyways, with that being said, the co-rulership they might have been able to pull this off longer. I think it also had to go to, priorities, obligations. The show must go on. But the reason that they couldn't, all together, they were together about 15, 20 years. The reason I always say couples that are married 30, 40, 50 years always have their moons in the same polarity. These two did not. So despite, against all odds, them, she ultimately left because the violence and brutality was too much. She says it got worse when he got into drugs. So with that being said, they might have been able to, again, sort of have a business-like marriage. She did take his name and she kept it. She may not have had to go off and rebrand herself as a solo artist. She may not have been able to within the confines of the relationship. But Mars square Mars usually lasts about 15 years, and they were together about 15. They were married for 14, plus the 5 since they met was 19. So 15 to 20 years, Mars square Mars. Honestly, I almost think Mars square Mars kept them fighting for the relationship despite the moon incompatibility. I almost feel like if the attraction and the fight for what was right wasn't so strong. It's interesting because, yeah, Mars square most other planets, it's just going to become too much. And it does wear on both of them. You know, most people don't look at Ike in a very good light, but he might have been fighting for the relationship as much as he was destroying the relationship on his end. So, you know, being a Virgo moon myself, I could see how he might want to isolate. And she is a Sagittarius with a Gemini moon. She might have been quite overwhelming to him at times. Now, I'm not justifying anything that may have happened violently, but just that incompatibility and him still, you know, wanting to keep control over this relationship and keep her in his wings, Mars square Mars, you know. And again, it goes back to their traditional values were stronger back then. They had children, they had a whole career and an empire together. But at the end of the day, I had watched something, and again, I don't usually get too much into their actual biographical info, but Ike had something happen early on where he had written a song and sold it. I don't know if he actually recorded it, but he lost the rights to it. And so he swore that that would never happen to him again. That's why he rebranded her with him. And he swore that when she left, she would leave with what she came with, which was nothing. So she left with 32 cents in her pocket. Oh man, I didn't even notice this before. I hope you stuck around to the end. They also had Saturn square Pluto, which is also a violent aspect. I didn't even see that. So I would say, you know, often I'm not seeing Mars square Mars play out with domestic violence. If anything, it's just a frustrating thing where they're very attracted to each other, but it's very hard to understand each other or get on the same page, but they both really want to fight for the relationship. Again, I almost feel like that's why they lasted as long as they did, despite the moons being incompatible. It's like the physical passion overrules the emotional incompatibility when you have Mars square Mars. But Saturn square Pluto, that's the one I always tell you guys. And I think it's just in like the deal breaker videos. I don't know if I've done a solo video for it, but I really should. If I have, you guys, I need to like make a list so I can keep better track. This is the most brutal divorce aspect. Whenever I have a client coming to me in a really bad divorce or custody battle, they have Saturn square Pluto, and Johnny Depp and Amber Heard had it, and look how out of hand that got. These two will literally fight to the death over resources and children. So Saturn square Pluto, you know, I don't know how much, I didn't hear anything when I was kind of watching stuff on them about how hard it was for her to get the kids. I just heard a brief, like she had the 4 kids with her after she left when she was living in sort of the rougher neighborhood. So it could have been the battle to break up was, no, we got to stay together for the kids, you know, back then, because divorce court and custody battles weren't necessarily as common back then. But Saturn square Pluto fight over resources. This is why she left with nothing. He got all the resources. At the end of the day, right, look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Someone is going to win. And I would have to look back at their video to see if it's Pluto that wins. Because here, Pluto won the resources, but Saturn won the children. Basically, in a nutshell. I don't know exactly all the details of how it went down, but pretty sure Tina ended up with the kids and Ike ended up with all the money. So Saturn square Pluto, though, one had to lose everything in that breakup, in that divorce. You know, Ike lost his reputation and his children. I don't know if he reconnected with the children later. I do know one of the sons did, you know, leave the earth by choice, is I guess how we have to say it on YouTube. And then Tina left with no money in her pocket and another 5 to 10 years of poverty, like as she had grown up in, kind of reverting back. You know, she'd already had her Saturn return and made it in life. Basically, she was married, had a great career with Ike, world famous, but she had her Saturn return even after that, had to revert back to poverty as she came as a child. But on the dawn of her second Saturn return, which I think happens, it happens in your early 50s. You have your Saturn, and there's like your early 50s Saturn return is really significant because I think it's Saturn and Pluto happening at the same time, or it might be Saturn. I can't remember right now. I know your Jupiter return in your 30s is Jupiter and Mars, but anyway. So back to kind of what I was saying at the beginning, you know, it was like on the dawn of her second Saturn return. I would have to look at the timeline a little closer of how her solo career went is when she was making it huge as a solo artist. Her Saturn retrograde kicked in. So if you have Saturn retrograde in your chart, your second half of your life is going to be way better than the first half of your life. So Tina Turner lived to be 84. Now we now know 83 or 84. She hit it big in her 40s and she never had to experience poverty again. And I don't know exactly how old she was, but I know it was after her solo career was flourishing. She went to England and she met Irwin, right? That's his name. Love at first sight. And somebody asked me, and I wish I had given you a heads up that I was doing this, but I'm sure you'll watch it in the replay. What was it? Tina's second husband? I'll just put Turner. I want to knock this out really quick. I got to get back to answering clients. I wish you guys would join me, but I need to get better about scheduling these. I just never know when I'm going to make it on due to traffic noise and all kinds of other noise in my environment. So Tina Turner, she waited 23 years, but they met and fell in love. So Irwin, right? Let's see, Irwin Bach. So let's go. Irwin Bach. What was his birthday? He was born January 24th, 1956. Let's go ahead and add him really quick to the database. Oh yeah, and if you haven't heard, submit to divinetimingdatabase.org. I have a bunch of matches in there now for you if you're single and you want to be matched based on your astrological compatibility. You never know. I have a lot of friends in Los Angeles. You could meet someone and end up moving to LA if you ever wanted to. I have some people in the UK, on the East Coast. Okay, January 24th, 1956. I'm going to assume that we don't have his birth time. He was born in Cologne, Germany. I'm going to go would Lombardy be Germany? If you guys haven't known, I'm the worst at geography. Okay, I think that's right. And if you're not sure, you can always just pick a major city in Germany because those countries are small, or even if you're dealing with a state, if it's like the same time zone, it should be pretty accurate. I think it's just based on the time zone more than the longitude or latitude, but don't quote me on that. So pretty much, I think if you pick any city in the same time zone, it should be pretty accurate. Oh. We're just going to say we don't know his birth time for now, see where his moon lands. Oh, now you guys can see how you add people in here. So you can actually store all of your people. I love it because I have the deep software, but I can use this anywhere on my phone, and I have all my friends and loved ones. And I lost the track of a lot of people because I used to just run it all on these free sites, like these just front-end sites, and then you lose it. So let's actually just go and double check his moon really quick so you guys can see how I do this too. 124.56. I do this all day long, you guys. 56. That's why I'm trying to get all of you single folks in divinetimingdatabase.org so you don't have to come to me frustrated every time you meet someone and you like them and you're not astrally compatible and it's not working out, and then you come to me as a client and say, I met him, I liked him, what's going on? And I'm like, next, find the next one. You know what I mean? We're all mixed up these days, though. They do it. I'm going to make a video on this someday, but they do it intentionally. They put it in all of our media to confuse us, to have us going for the wrong things. That R.C. Blakes Jr., I love to watch, he calls it like the broken female consciousness. We literally get all these messages that make us look for the wrong qualities. You know, activates the wrong parts of our chart. So let's see, Cologne, Germany. This one is right. So I could actually check off those coordinates. Oops. I forgot to click unknown. I'm going to do this really quick. Cologne, just because this is how you learn, you guys. This is how I get so good at astrology. So on here, Cologne, Germany is 50 north, 56, 6.58 east. Let's go here. Longitude for him and latitude. It's close. Latitude's 45 and longitude's 9. But you know what's cool? I don't know if you guys want to see this, but we can literally click the ID number there, and we could go down here. And now that we know the Cologne, Germany coordinates, go back here. Latitude 50, what was it? Cologne, Germany. Latitude 50 north, 56. Longitude, what was it, guys? 658. Hope I'm doing this right. That was close. 957, 658. Okay, let's try this. See what happens. So it should be his moon degree on this should be what it says noon on there. So 102, Tina is 98 and he's 102. Shout out to whoever entered themselves as 99 or entered someone as 99 since I did the last video. Okay. ID number. So here we have that Erwin's moon is, oh, you guys, oh man, okay. Whoever asked me to look in Erwin, okay, his moon is, if he was born at noon, his moon is 19 degrees. So this should match as the middle part. 19 degrees Gemini. If I did the longitude and latitude right, this should align. This should say 19 degrees Gemini in the smack dab in the middle. Oh, come on. Yep, 19 degrees Gemini in 17 minutes. Let's see, what's it here? 19 degrees Gemini in 17 minutes. So I did do the longitude and latitude right. Okay. Excuse me. So here we can see, and you can see it, so you can see it down. If you look at the bottom of the wheel, you'll see the little moon symbol at 19 degrees Gemini, and you'll see that he's 100% Gemini, no matter what time he was born that day in that place. And you can even look to the right here, where there's this list, right, and you see moon, and it says 11 degrees Gemini, 19 degrees, and 26. I wish I could show you guys the cursor. Here, I'll scroll it to like the very top. So if you look to the list, it says Sun in Aquarius, Moon on the right side, where all the listed stuff is, to the right of the wheel. All right, so, yes. So, this is why I go, because who did Tina have love at first sight with? If you go to, let's go back here, go to divinetimingdatabase.org right here, you know, the one I keep telling you all to submit to because I just keep proving these theories over and over again. And if you go to how it works, see it's underlined there? Just waiting for it to load. I guess I'm using too much data. Go down here when you have some free time. This is run way too long. I try to keep it at 30 minutes. We're already at 38. But right here, I gave you guys a link to a study on moon conjunct moon and love at first sight, and I'm going to be doing a video soon. I've just got to get it together on love at first sight. But click on this link here, and you can read, you know, this is how social sciences work. This is why, aside from being an astrologist and a clairvoyant, me studying, you know, basically, 400 level sociology, this is laid out that way, you know, and statistics. So, of course, it's not like peer backed or reviewed, but this is a really good example of data on how this works. And it basically says that, you know, sun trines and conjunctions in this sample population proved to be quite significant. Now, with that being said, I mean, it's something interesting to look over, even if you don't understand it. You know, the more years go by, the more and more I understand what this says here. And that's even with all the background of knowing data and sociology and social sciences, and statistics. But anyway, with that being said, statistics is very challenging. What I'm trying to say here, if I didn't lose you all, is who do I say are twin flames and high level soulmates and meant to be together? It's the moon conjunctions, same sign. And what do we have here? Tina Turner's moon is 100% 6 degrees Gemini. Irwin's is 100% in the sign of Gemini. So, for example, if he was born at, 12:01 a.m. on his birthday, his moon would be 11 degrees Gemini, would be in a 5-degree orb with hers, which is highly significant. Now, the only thing here that I would note is that her moon holds the lower degree. So, in this way, it's more ideal in Vedic astrology for the man's moon to hold the lower degree. So she was a little bit more emotionally supportive to him than he was to her. Could be because she just had all the resources in the world. But they were simpatico. He understood her. All he had to look back, all he had to do was turn around and say, girl, I see you. I got you. And that was more compatible with her than, I think I did the math once on this because, each sign's 30 degrees times 12. It was more compatible with her than, I think it's like in 90% or more than 90% of the population emotionally. And that's just with no variables on whether there's more Gemini moons or other moons, etc., etc. It's just if there's an equal amount of every type of moon, okay, born. So with that being said, yeah, basically, again, I just tell you guys over and over and over, I tell you all. And I would love, man, if I had more time to get into like the composites and show you the themes of Tina and Ike and, why it was all in music and all of that. But for now, I'm just, and maybe why. But anyway, so their moons were in Gemini. What did it say about them here? How long were they together? They were together for 27 years and got married in 2013. So it was a 37-year romance. Sorry, you guys, can you quote me? What do I always say? What do I see in couples that are married 30, 40, 50 years? I see moon trines, conjunctions, oppositions, sextiles. They have to be in the same polarity. It's even better when they are in the same sign is the best, or the same element, which would be a trine, which would be, Libra or Aquarius in this case. So she's a Sagittarius, he's an Aquarius, so their suns are sextile. Let's see, what degree is that happening at? Oh my goodness, you guys. Their suns, I didn't even look, their suns are exactly sextile to the exact degree. Okay, let's go down and just review. Let's see, do they have any malefics? Oh, okay, so see again here, this proves my other theory. Oh man, I wish somebody was in here, but you guys will watch it on the review because I'm just so excited. My friend loves using the database, and I love it because he's helping spread the word, and he's learning so much, and he challenges me like all my clients do, and I learn just by your questions. But I keep saying to you guys, I left this little gas pedal wheel thing in here, and I'm gonna get in there in the coding, and I'm gonna tweak it, and I'm gonna make it work where it actually works to my theories. I don't want to, I've dragged this on way too long to explain to you how this actually works. I didn't build it. It says they have a -24 harmony score. What did it say for Tina and Ike? Oh, maybe I actually am on Tina and Ike. No, I'm not. Did I close out of them? No, I didn't. Their wheel, okay, so Tina and Ike had -25, and Tina and Erwin have -24. But Tina and Ike were together 15, 20 years, extremely toxic relationship, and Tina and Erwin were together for 37 years, love of their life, love at first sight, and they have the same score. So that's what I'm telling you guys. This number doesn't matter. I don't even like leaving it in there because I don't want to mislead you guys. I took out the whole Cosmodyne Synastry thing, although it is cool to definitely run your own individual Cosmodynes, and if you want me to do that for you, I should add a package, but I might do a little video to show you guys how to do that. Leave me a comment if you want me to do a video to show you how the powers work in the Cosmodynes. I'll show you guys that really quick, really quick, what I'm talking about just while I'm on the topic. So if you go up here and you go to natal Cosmodynes, it's right next to natal chart. You can do Tina really quick, 98. This breaks down for you by power, your most powerful planet in your chart, including the angles, the ascendant and the midheaven, your most powerful sign in your chart. So for Tina, her most powerful sign was Sagittarius. Often you're going to find that your sun sign is the most powerful sign because the sun, you know, it fuels our whole life. It's our life force. For her, her most powerful planet was in... is her sun also. Like for me, for example, it's my midheaven. And then it also shows you the harmony, where you have the most harmony. So her most harmonious planet is Jupiter and Pluto. Pluto's her most harmonious, you know. Jupiter brings wealth and fame. It's one of her most harmonious. That's probably why she had that against all odds. And then you go down here and it shows you your most powerful house. For Tina, it was her 10th house, which is career. Imagine that. All right. Okay, so definitely check those out if you ever want me to like break it down for you. I should add that as a reading on rotation411.com. Let me know in the comments if you want me to add that or order that from me. But anyways, let's just quickly run over Bach and Tina's aspects. Because if we go down here, wait, this is, oh man, interesting. So I do get proven wrong on occasion, even though, so they had Venus conjunct Mars. So I always say moon compatibility, like especially a moon conjunction like they have, and Venus conjunct Mars are the best romance aspects that you can have. And to find both of those in one person, again, love at first sight. And what's the orb of this Venus conjunct Mars that they had? I should just have done a separate video for them. Maybe I'll add them to the title. It's his Venus conjunct her Mars, which can get a little tricky in the courting phase, which could be why it took so long for them to get married. But I also just saw that they had Mars square Mars as well, which is very interesting. I told you guys, Mars square Mars seems to be able to... Oh man, and they had Mars square Saturn. Dang, this thing just proven me wrong all around. All right, so I'm going to say that Mars square Mars and Mars square Saturn is why it took them so long to get married. But this is the first time I've ever seen Mars square Mars or Mars square Saturn in a union that would last so long. I'm going to say the reason Mars square Mars is here is one, why she hesitated, because they said she didn't want to go through the same thing again. She probably felt that similar energy. Again, like I told you guys, Mars square Mars doesn't actually indicate physical violence. It's just kind of challenging. It's a battle, definitely. You have to look at the signs to see how they play out. Like for me, my Mars is in Gemini, so when I have Mars square Mars, I'm even more verbally combative, right? But doesn't mean you're going to be physically combative. And Mars square Saturn. So this is how I defined it. Mars square Saturn, a deal breaker divorce aspect. Mars and Saturn are both malefic planets, and in a square it will break a couple apart. This often happens in either in the initial stages, as Erwin Bach does not want to commit, or Tina Turner feels immense pressure to, right? She didn't want to commit because she, you know, what she went through before, and probably because she had great financial resources. But I'm sure he did too. He's a successful producer. I'm just not so sure it was to the same level as her. So even if Erwin Bach didn't ask for it and wanted to go with the flow, we can see this couple break up within 2 to 6 months, 1 to 3 years, or if the other aspects are highly favorable, they can get married but will divorce around 4 to 5 years into the relationship from its origin date. So you guys are probably like, dang, she just proved herself wrong. I love being proved wrong, because you know what this just taught me? That Moon conjunction and Venus conjunct Mars together, which is very, very rare, can overcome Mars square Mars and Mars square Saturn. And that's kind of thrilling, all right? So I would say that if their moons were squaring like hers and Ike's, they would not have lasted more than 20 years at the most. I honestly think the Mars square Saturn is why it took them so long to tie the knot, Saturn's contracts. And Mars square Mars could be that familiar energy where she's just like, I'm not sure, like she's enjoying the sun, you know, the moon conjunction and the Venus conjunct Mars. But again, also because it was her Mars conjunct his Venus. That could have been where it got a little wonky too. So maybe he didn't, you know, actually propose or something for a long time, and she maybe was traditional. We don't really know what went on behind closed doors. It's all conjecture, you know, from me, but that is very interesting. I almost feel like there must be something in her natal chart, if I had more time to look into it, that would make her drawn to Mars square Mars. Where was his Mars? I'm sure this is Erwin. His Mars is in... It's the same thing. His Mars is exactly where Ike's was. I keep like double checking, like, was this... I'm sure I'm not looking at Ike and Tina. Let's see. Ike's Mars, are they born the same year? No, he's 1931. Ike's Mars was 4 degrees Sagittarius, and Erwin's was 6 degrees Sagittarius. So it's interesting. It was like, it was a very familiar energy to her, but honestly, again, it's that co-ruler, Jupiter, you know, and Jupiter is the most powerful planet in her chart. So, oh man, that's a lot to wrap my head around. I think at some point I'm going to have an epiphany about that and have to make a video about co-rulership with Mars and Jupiter or something. There's something there. I just can't quite get it right now. It's very, very interesting. It could be that if she didn't go through what she went through with Ike, that she had met Erwin younger, that they might not have had the success that they had as far as a relationship, and that they would have been more heartbroken because their moons are so compatible, and also their the Venus conjunct Mars. Now, the one last thing I have to say, and you guys know this, is I have a thing about men's moon being in Gemini, so it could very well be that Erwin wasn't entirely the most faithful. So, you know, I think that really at the end of the day, this was a very loving, kind relationship, but there was probably a lot of freedom and independence with Sagittarius, sextile, Aquarius, but they probably just really loved being together and chatting. And even their Mercuries are sextile, 3 degrees. Sagittarius, Aquarius, Venus, Venuses are co-ruled by Jupiter again. It's a very Sagittarius Pisces thing going on. Let's see. His Mars is conjunct her Venus, and then her Venus is conjunct his Mars, but at a very wide orb. So they actually have it going both ways. Same sign, Venus conjunct Mars. Double whammy with the moon conjunction, basically. What's the moiety though? Well, depending on what time he was born. So the moon's moiety is 10 degrees, so 16 degrees. So if he was born, you know, before 6 a.m., their moons were within moiety. And so moon conjunction within moiety plus Venus conjunct Mars, even though it's a wide orb, going both ways, double whammy, apparently can overcome a lot. We see that we actually saw the same thing. I haven't done their video yet, actually, so cliffhanger, but there's something very similar going on with David and Victoria Beckham. Basically, they're the only ones I've ever seen without moon compatibility, and they have Venus-Mars compatibility going both ways, and the rulerships are very interesting, but I'll save that as a cliffhanger for their video, which I'll eventually get around to. Just keep finding more and more interesting couples. I'm actually studying all of them all the time, which just takes me a while to get on here and actually tell you guys about it, but I have everything set up now and I'm getting better at it. So anyways, I am going to leave you guys because I have to go answer clients. I think one of my clients from the platform I work for, which I don't promote on here, but some of you are on here, just followed me, just subscribed earlier and ordered from me. So, and I was going to follow up with her about moon, like verifying the moons also. So, with that being said, definitely if you want a tarot reading or you want me to like really dig into your charts with someone or your own birth chart, go to rotation411.com for my packages. I put the new links for donations. It would be great if you could help support the channel. If you're single and you believe in astrology at all, definitely check out that article if you like data and submit yourself to Divine Timing Database. And if you just want to study and research, you can use my free tool, divinetimingdatabase.com. All right, I'm sending you all lots of love, blessings, and light. I'll try to get better about scheduling these. I used to pop on here and people would just kind of, at least a few people would trickle in, but I guess it didn't notify you or something, or it's not telling me you're in here. But anyways, sending you lots of